having that passion for the sport. We talked about student of the sport, but having that passion for the sport is something that's definitely going to make them successful. Obviously, a lot of people talk about physique and rowing, but and that is there for sure. But if you have that, you don't have the passion, you're not going very far. And you gotta. That's why it's so important and I believe this, pretty strongly. It's really important to pick a place or be at a place where you are inspired by the coaching staff, or you are inspired by the university to compete at that athletic level, because that is a huge part of the success. Like, you want to be really inspired to be able to be successful, and you got to know why you're doing the whys, to put in the grind and the hard work every day.
Cool. So we are already recording, and so for everyone listening, I have Kim Cupini here, head coach at the University of Tennessee. This is a long time coming, and I know she her season has started, so I'm sure she's running around like crazy getting things up and running for the start of classes and the start of the fall. But Kim, I'm super pumped to talk to you. I'm super excited to chat a little bit about college rowing, your team with the University of Tennessee, and the amazing success that you guys have had over the last year, finishing third in the country last year at the NCAAs. So we're going to have a lot of fun in this conversation. But before we get started, or as we get started, why don't you give us an introduction to yourself? I know you have a lot of head coaching experience going on. I think if my math is correct, not quite 20 years, but a lot of head coaching experience. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit about your background. And then we'll start things off with getting a little bit of a status update on what's cooking at Tennessee. Where are you at in the early September? What's in store in the next couple of weeks? But let's go from there. So if you don't mind kicking things off and give us a brief introduction.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been coaching for a while, actually over the 20-year mark now. I'm in pretty old since graduation. So yeah, okay. I've been starting right out of graduation, coaching, obviously, and have been had a lucky opportunity. I taught marine science actually in my early years, and so I actually taught marine science in San Diego as well as coached in those early years. So definitely was kind of like most of us started in coaching, definitely multitasking different things. But then, I definitely started going heavy on the coaching side, and I eventually left my alma mater, went on to build other programs out in Florida, and then got brought back later on at my alma mater. So as a head coach, so I was pretty fortunate there, and was able to continue to build at several different programs, and I've had an awesome opportunity along the way, and it's just super fun to be able to take one program from a certain point and bring them to the other. So that's been probably the best part of the journey.
What got you into coaching personally? Like, I know you said that it was a quick, easy transition, and then you made the transition from a different role, but what like sparked that interest in coaching when the unique opportunity came up? Was it like something really quick where it's like, hey, like I'm looking for a change in path and this looks suitable, and then here we are, fast forward to where we are today? But what flipped that switch for you?
I think I was always a multi-sport athlete, loved doing a lot of sports, did a lot of sports back in the day, and I was coaching actually in swimming for a while when I was younger, and kind of helped out with other sports. So I did, coach a lot when I was younger, and just enjoyed working with different athletes. They always had us work with some of the younger youth as we went along. And so I was always kind of doing a little bit already. And then, when I first started rowing, our program was really small, and I was a multiple sport athlete. I did swimming and rowing, and I always helped out with both sports. So I felt like it was a really easy transition for me, because I felt like I was always kind of helping the coaches and learning. I love to learn different things, especially in rowing. Swimming was only you in the pool and just learning the movement of your body. Whereas, in basketball, obviously, there's intricacies there. But I think rowing was just fascinating to me with the different riggings you can do, and oars and boat choices and all that. Back in the day, I learned to row on spoons, and it's just aging myself here, but it was a easy transition for me to kind of jump in to learn more about coaching. And I was always into the academic side as well. So coaching in the university setting, I guess, felt really natural to me. I kind of wore many different hats and helped them out, kind of with their career paths for academics as well. So that transition felt pretty natural.
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about Tennessee. right? So you're here, and I didn't highlight this when we first started, but you are literally at the boathouse
Yeah.
overseeing. I guess is that the river that you
Yeah, I
guys
know.
row
I'm
on?
like
Is
I'm
that
leaning away a little bit here on
yeah?
both sides, but yeah, I'm on the
Oh
third
man,
floor of our boathouse. It's just a great setting where it's a little bit quieter to come do the interview than in the hustle bustle of the boathouse for sure. But yeah, this is the third floor at the boathouse, and we're right on campus, so right behind Neyland Stadium, behind the football stadium. We're just right down the hill, and campus is located right on the river. It's absolutely gorgeous. Looks pretty, it's pretty flat like this almost all the time, and you can row, forever in each direction. So we're super fortunate to have that facility for us.
yeah, no, that's amazing. And so you said like boat. So I'm curious, like for you, like give us the like I guess maybe if classes started maybe like a week or so
Yeah,
ago, like how has practice been? What's been going on in terms of like, what's coming up in the next couple of weeks? But just to kick that off, is the boathouse, so the boathouse is literally
yep,
on campus. Do students
yep,
walk there? Is that
yep.
like general
Yeah,
communicate?
it's
Yeah.
super
Okay.
awesome. I mean, like I said, like you mentioned, I've been coaching for a while and coach at several different universities, and this is the first university. Like some universities, the drive has been under 10 minutes, but it was still a drive, and it was still a pain to carpool, and athletes were always sharing gas money and things like that, or just going through safety exercises if they were using vans, and we're super fortunate. They just walk right down the hill, which is awesome. So it's right on campus. Which I love. And yeah, we started up a couple weeks ago, not many, but we progressed really slow. Some women are coming back from the World Championships, so they've been rowing all summer. Some women have been just cross training and completely kind of off and just taking it slow. So we have people from all different levels right now joining together, which is pretty awesome. And at Tennessee, we're really spoiled. The river never freezes over, so it looks like this all year. So we don't have to kind of get in there and go crazy. We can progress really slowly, which is helpful with the bodies as well, because we can be on the water year round, which is pretty awesome.
And so what's like, do you guys do some fall racing or some competitions here deeper into the fall? Like are you full kind of in season, practicing? Like, did you have practice today? Like what's
Yeah,
that
we
look
did have
like?
practice today. We haven't been going on the water a lot, but we went on the water today, and we had some people checking out campus as well and checking out the waterway, which is really cool. And they're lifting later today, so that's pretty awesome. But like I said, we are progressing pretty slow, and we're not even training every day. We have limits, for those of you guys that don't know, in the collegiate setting, we have limits of 8 hours and 20-hour weeks. So we're kind of we're just kind of beginning off the year in our 8-hour week. So we're really slow right now, but it's pretty fun. It's a great opportunity to get the athletes. Sometimes they even host, their own stuff, like go for a fun run or something. So it's pretty nice. But yeah, today we were at practice, had a quick water practice, which is really awesome because we haven't been able to see them as a team out there a lot yet. So it was great to get out there.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I want to kind of circle around to, so obviously you've been at Tennessee for a year now, or going into your second year. You had an amazing, unbelievable year last year. Talk to me a little bit about like the goals for, the upcoming season, maybe even just the experience that you had at the first, your first season, and then what changes you're making or what you're trying to build off of entering this fall here in the early stages of the season. But talk to me a little bit about like just the success that you guys had last season and how you're trying to build off that as you approach these first couple weeks of the fall
Yeah,
season.
great. I mean, great question. It was obviously an awesome year for us. The Tennessee itself, before I was here, wasn't in the tournament last year. So our big focus was getting in the tournament and obviously making a big impact. And eventually get on the podium, which is pretty awesome. So getting third in the country was, obviously an amazing achievement for us. But we had, some strong goals, and there was a lot of women here that wanted to do it and want to go for it. And so, we had some women that came over from our previous university with our coaching staff. So we were fortunate to have them around. And so a lot of the goals last year was getting the team rowing together, working together, getting them united, obviously believing in the new staff and understanding what we do and why we do things was a huge part of the goals that we had. And so this year is just a little bit different. Obviously, we have new people as well coming in with the change of classes, but it's definitely focusing on some different things and getting out there and building, like you said, building off of what we did last year, continuing to understand our training, continuing to understand our bodies and where we're at to develop and become better rowers and obviously better students, better people in general. We work on that. throughout the year. So that's, some of our goals to start. And, right now I wouldn't say we talk so much about, NCAAs in the very moment, or podium right at this very moment. A lot of it is just focusing on creating that strong leadership and the strong passion we have for the sport, and continuing to work on being students of the sport and enjoying what we're doing and enjoying the team, enjoying our staff, enjoying everybody together is a huge goal that we have, just even for the fall. So we tend to break it down a little bit in sections of the season.
Yeah, and I just, a question that just popped up in my head that I think would be, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Like, what are you telling? So you just came off of a great season. You're entering this new season. What's your messaging to the incoming freshmen? Like, what's your messaging to the incoming freshmen who just set foot on campus? They are walking into this really competitive, or this team that's operating at the highest level. What is your messaging? And this can go in many different directions, but what's your messaging to those freshmen as they get their boots on the ground and start to get acclimated to the team and school and everything else that is to come from a Division I athlete?
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, I think one of our first messages is like deep breaths, guys, deep breaths, right? Because no matter where you go, like just the transition from, a high school rowing program or, any high school university, going to university is just different. And so, and especially if we have people from all over the nation, which is awesome. And then we have people from all over the world. So, the experience coming in is a lot of just like deep breaths and getting used to just, how we do things, and getting their feet on the ground is definitely like you mentioned is one of the big focuses, and really just giving themselves time, like not being too eager to feel like they have to do so much right away. We always tell them like we will get to know each other more across the year. We will bond more. We will you'll understand this type of training more. We just really encourage them to just have some patience for themselves, some deep breaths while they're learning. Even if they did something very, very well in high school or at the top of their program, they might have to like kind of start down here so they can, relearn how to do things in the collegiate setting, and just learning how to manage their time, with rowing and schoolwork and things like that is always different too. So we try to work a lot with them on that. And, one thing we do at Tennessee is we do work with them a lot on the academic side and have a lot of resources to just make sure that they're staying on track and balancing their time and adjusting well, because obviously getting their academics right in the first semester is super important. And then, that's why we build and progress in the rowing side of things.
Yeah, no, it's I like that approach, and I like that athletes kind of like, they don't have to feel like from day one they have to have it all figured out. They kind of have time to acclimate and get an understanding of where everything is, but also incrementally build up with the rowing and integrating with the team. So that one of the things I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit today. So it's like you have this, you have this program, you guys are building, and continuing to refine your goals as you move through or just start year two. Like for you, like what are some things, like as a leader, as a coach, as the head coach, that you are shaping this year round, like the messaging to not only just the freshmen, but the athletes as a whole? Like, are there things that you as a team really center yourself with, as this is our main focus, this is what we're prioritizing? And it doesn't even have to be like for the full season, but even just like the fall season. You mentioned student of the sport, like becoming students of the sport, or continuing to just, I guess, become better rowers, become, better at the craft of what we do. But is there anything that you as a coach and your staff echo to your team as this is our primary focus, or even internally between you and the coaches, like this is what we're trying to get out of this team here in the fall?
Yeah, no, that's another great question. I mean, we really do dive deep with just, our coaching kind of, I don't want to say philosophy because it's a little bit maybe cliche in this sense, but like, we really do work on the person as a whole. So just on their, obviously, mental state, their mind, body, everything. It's just it's encompassing. And that includes like everything to support them to be a good athlete. So not even just, being a student of the sport, like how are you going to be successful, and really nailing those good habits down early. So whether it's in nutrition or your mental wellness or your sport psych, or things like just the daily, what is your sleep schedule? How are you eating? How are you recovering after practices? Like just breaking down the simple things, because once you're in season and once you're in racing season, and many of the rowing programs are even headed into finals, at that point you have to have that stuff kind of really nailed down at that point of the season. So if you're not talking about it now, then obviously there's a lot of room for improvement for that as we go through the season.
All right, what's up, everyone? Kevin Leslie, and quick interruption to the podcast to tell you about the At the 1,000 Collective. The ATT Collective is an online community for high school rowers who want to better position themselves for long-term success at the college level. And in the collective, you're going to be invited to 2 group coaching Zooms per month, featuring top coaches, elite athletes, rowing experts, where we're going to dive into topics centered around training, rowing performance, college recruiting, personal development, you name it. You're also going to get an opportunity for a live Q&A where you can ask individual questions to help set you on your own path. You're also going to receive a weekly newsletter with erg workouts, core circuits, tips and tricks for rowing and recruiting, and also highlights from any previous Zooms so you can begin to incorporate those into your own practice. Lastly, you're going to get unlimited access to all ATT online courses and programs, most notably the erg First, Row Second online course, where you can begin to do some training at your own pace. So the purpose of this program is to help athletes get the information and guidance to help them take that next step and feel prepared heading into college rowing. So if you're interested in joining, we're offering 50% off your first month. Go to the description below, grab the code, and we hope to see you in the next Zoom. And you'll also receive your first newsletter as soon as this upcoming week. So again, join the community. Let's have some fun. Let's keep pushing and evolving our rowing. And I hope to see you soon. Now back to the show. Peace. And so for athletes who, again, like for athletes and parents who are listening, like what does like life on campus for a Division I athlete, or for Division I athlete who is part of a program like yourself, right? A top grand finalist type crew. Like what does that day to day look like, that week to week? What can athletes expect walking it, like their week to look like, or their day to look like, even, right? Like in terms of, and you can keep it more on like the rowing, right, side of things, where it's like we, practicing, at these times, and, we do have a strength conditioning staff, and athletes are, maybe required to do this and this, on a weekly basis with studies and stuff like that. Like, what is that day to day for athletes at any age at Tennessee? Yeah, I mean, what does that day to day look like?
I think that's something that actually, to your credit of asking me, that is something, recruits should ask, honestly, because not every school is just, set up and arranged the same way. Obviously, in the SEC, Tennessee really believes on the support of the student athlete, and the coaches. It's not just about resources of why you're successful. The coaches actually have to back that, and there has to be a lot of focus on setting up their daily schedules where they have time to go in and go into the training room and use those resources and work with them, and creating an atmosphere on the team where they believe in doing things like that. So that's something that I think, that we really try to work at Tennessee. But you see a lot of those top teams in the country that are getting on the podium or in the top 10 in the country, they're putting a lot of focus on that. So everybody has a different setup, but I do think that they are getting in there. If their academics aren't there, they do have resources in tutoring. They do have academic study hall hours where they're setting up their day. And it's not a lot of schools mandate an exact time, but it's like, hey, let's get in these hours. If you're struggling, let's go get help. Let's get free tutoring. If you have something that's bothering you in your body, let's make sure we're setting up times with your athletic trainers. We're really fortunate here that we have several athletic trainers that are kind of, around the clock watching us, and the resources there. So things like that, I think, in their daily lives, in their weekly schedule, we set that up for them. And they have a lot of different point people to go to. They might also, if they're struggling with their nutrition or they're struggling with their sleep, they have a lot of resources to go ask people, not only their coaches, but they have a lot of resources there to go ask. So I think a lot of those top schools are really focusing on kind of getting the athlete to be in their best place. But I think, here at Tennessee, we're really focused on that.
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity to walk the campus of a couple big Power 5 type type schools. And what I'm a massive college football fan. So Tennessee, that's gotta be a blast to, be a part of that in some capacity, but just the resources and the what they do to help position athletes for success, I think is like unbelievable. Like I went to St. Joe's up here in Philadelphia. I rode there and I was a walk on there. So it was all brand new to me, but, mid-major school, but then you kind of go up to the Power Fives, like the Tennessees, like I'm sure, and maybe, down the line, if I am ever traveling through that area, I can see it for myself. But I'm sure like the resources that you guys kind of set up for these athletes, to get to the heights that your team is at, like there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that is completely unrelated to the sport of rowing and
yeah, no,
right?
absolutely. And you said it, like, I think there is a difference between some of the school setups that have those resources. But I think you can't, when you're looking at a school and whether it's going to be successful, and if you're, a young athlete that's looking on where to go to school, just because they have the resources doesn't mean they're going to be successful either, So you have to look at the coaches and the assistant coaches' track records with that success and make sure that they're always moving forward in the program and using those resources, or trying to at least move forward. Because I think it's a combination of that. But I do think the resources matter. And I think, there's a lot of great places that have both, but I think, and they have great academics as well. So I think some people think, oh, I have to go to X school because this is what my parents said is the way to go because it's the best academic school. That's not necessarily true. And it definitely depends on the programs and definitely depends on the attention they're getting. And also sometimes the resources to balance those classes and balance, rowing is important too. So I think people are realizing you don't have to go, that name on your degree isn't the most important thing always, and so I think there's a lot of different opportunities out there. And so, my advice is to look at everything and make sure there's the resources there to be supported, as well as, people surrounding you. It's the people that actually are the most important thing. And it's the relationships and, the culture that's built within the team that is a lot more important than even the resources, to be honest.
Yeah. And you mentioned down where you are, right, in Tennessee, and I've never been. I've flown over it to other states and stuff like that, but but for you guys and the environment down there, like what is like, do you guys have like the ability to row year round? Is there like a true dedicated time where you have to be off the water outside of like, the academic calendar and stuff like that? But like, is it like, because one of the things I always am curious about, it's like, hey, like up here in the Northeast, like there's 3 months where we ain't going on the water. We're kind of in the erg room, locked in kind of thing, like, like that. But what's that timeline look like for you? Is that something that you have to kind of manufacture? Where it's like, hey, here's when we're on land, but here's when we can get on the water because we can, we kind of have that, ability to. But describe that for me.
Tennessee's awesome because we have 4 seasons, which is very, very cool, but our 4 seasons are very mild. So we can be on the water year round. That water behind me never freezes over, which is pretty awesome. It's very, very forgiving when it comes. I was born and raised in upstate New York, so land of the wind and snow, endless lake effect snow. So I grew up in that, and I also rowed in Maine, so I know what it's like to row year round in weather conditions like that. And I'm a firm believer in, hey, our sport is rowing, and obviously erging is a great training tool, and the schools that need to be in the tanks or be on off the water a lot, I get that. That's what they have to do. But that is a reason why if you have the choice, our staff positions ourselves kind of a little bit more south, obviously, so we can be on the water year round. And that's pretty important to us, especially the women that have, aspirations to go on to the World Championships or row for their country. Just being on the water, obviously you can do great training on land, but we really do try to mix it up. But it gives us an ability to mix up that cross training throughout the entire season, and instead of just being like, okay, all water, and then all land, because we have to be, because we're off the water, and then back to. So I as a younger coach, I actually turned down a lot of jobs up in the colder climates just because I enjoy working with the sport and being outside and doing that kind of year round. Our academic, a lot of people forget that our academic calendar goes through the winter, which is the season where we really have to be off the water. So it depends on the year, of course, for some schools, but yeah, we're fortunate that we can be on the water year round down here.
Yeah, wow. And that's the 4 seasons, but all mild, is right up my alley. That is I'm a warm weather person.
Yeah.
So that's a really enticing way to describe it. So that's great. And I want to dive into like more like the athletes, right? And athletes specifically, like, and just in terms of like not only your current athletes, the ones that you have on your roster now, but also athletes who do want to, and this is just broad, just your experience as a coach at the college level, athletes that are walking in and trying to row at a Division I level, and compete at that level, be a contributor to a team, like what do you feel makes those athletes successful? And that could be in many different things. It could be they got to have the raw capacity as an athlete as well, but also, whether it's the intangibles like their work ethic, their ability to organize and balance different things. Like, broad question, but how would you describe like what makes athletes successful at that level, or at least walking in and then aspiring to be a contributor to a program like yours or any of those Division I programs?
I think having that passion for the sport. We talked about student of the sport, but having that passion for the sport is something that's definitely going to make them successful. Obviously, a lot of people talk about physique and rowing, but and that is there for sure. But if you have that, you don't have the passion, you're not going very far. And you gotta. That's why it's so important and I believe this pretty strongly. It's really important to pick a place or be at a place where you are inspired by the coaching staff, or you are inspired by the university to compete at that athletic level, because that is a huge part of the success. Like, you want to be really inspired to be able to be successful, and you got to know why you're doing the whys, to put in the grind and the hard work every day. So I think for the successful athletes I've seen is, they obviously enjoy the sport, been student of the sports, but they also are, pretty passionate about those around them as well. And that helps them contribute more. And they got to believe in their coaching staff too, and believe in their teammates, of where they're going and what they're doing. And that's a huge part of it. The little things matter too, obviously, like taking care of yourself and the basics. But I think we all know, even coming from a high school level, if you've done athletics, we all see how that can help play out.
Yeah. And even, or looking at that or building off of that. So it's like athletes, kind of to be successful at that level, like, are there things that you as a coach, your staff as coaches look for in athletes who you're trying to make a part of your team? And again, whether that's culture fit, you want them to kind of feel like they can be a part of it, and fit into what you're trying to build. But also, like, another thing that I'm curious about is like student of the sport, and are they asking different questions that you find, or that you and your staff are like, hey, like this athlete is asking those deeper level questions where they are knowledgeable about the sport. And then bridging off of that, I'd be curious in the second piece of that is there any, do you guys put any emphasis into their background besides rowing? Like, if they played other sports, or like you said, you were a 3-sport athlete, is that a piece of the equation when you are looking for people who are potentially the right fit for a program like Tennessee or any high-level Division I program?
Absolutely, yeah. I think being well-rounded, being a multi-sport athlete is a huge, awesome advantage to have coming into a collegiate program like Tennessee. We love to see women that want to be strong and are definitely, great athletes. I think that's a huge part of the puzzle to begin with. Is rowing's a really hard sport, and you have to know how to move your body and handle your body, and be able to kind of transition through some of those harder training segments, or even do, obviously we can teach a lot, and we teach, definitely at Tennessee, we teach a lot of cross training, in the weight room, and just all around when it comes to mobility and things like that. But coming in, we definitely look for women that have that experience of, maybe the multi-sport athletes, or kind of know what you're talking about when we ask, lifting questions or mobility questions. That's always I feel like they come in really ready to go when they have that background, which has been great to see. And I think that's getting more common, from women coming from high school. They're definitely getting exposed to some good stuff across the country and then overseas as well.
Yeah. And I think with your roster and the makeup of that, like, do you guys put any emphasis into, like, hey, if an athlete's only been rowing for a year, do you guys do walk-ons or anything like that? Like, people who have no rowing experience? And the reason I ask is, the athlete I spoke with, Kara Kohler, came out like 2 weeks ago. She was a Cal rower, or obviously 3-time Olympian, represented the women in Paris, a month ago. But didn't row at all in high school. Walked on the campus at another very competitive program, especially at that time when she won a national title a couple of years into her rowing career. Is that something that you guys look for, like in terms of like athletes who maybe are less experienced on the rowing front? Maybe they don't have the facts and figures that we look for in terms of like 2K score and, some other erg metrics. And through that recruiting process, is that something that you guys are actively seeking? Maybe not a true walk on, like, hey, you're picking them off the streets in campus. Maybe you are, I don't know. But like their rowing background as a whole, it's like, hey, I just started this, but I do have, or to you can see potential. Is that something that plays into this process?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we recruit a lot of different levels, and that's definitely one of them. That's just one of them. We're looking for many different types of athletes, but that's definitely one of them where, maybe they aren't the best rower yet or don't have a lot of experience, but they're true athletes and they're really excited about developing that passion and learning from the coaching staff. And I feel like that's one thing again, I say this a lot, but I'm super fortunate with our staff. We have an amazing staff. We're a staff that doesn't, have a ton of turnover, which is great. And they have a huge impact because it's really hard. Like, obviously I'm the head coach and I can't coach everybody. There's no program that can say they can really coach everybody unless you have a couple kids on the team. Right. And so I think that you're only as good as your staff that's supporting you to develop those different groups. So I think, absolutely, we're looking for women that we want to, that we can develop that may not be there yet. And then also women that are developed and to move them forward and see what their goals are, at the national team level and things like that. So we definitely, at Tennessee, we recruit all different levels, but that athlete that you're speaking of, maybe the woman that hasn't quite gotten into rowing too much, but there's a lot of potential there. Like, absolutely. And there's a great setup for her to do that at a place like Tennessee. So absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, especially when you have the right staff, the right leadership, the people who can take the time to make sure that they develop the right way. Like, I think that's amazing, because I think a lot of high school athletes, it's just more, they might not be in the environment where you can realize that success at that stage of your life. But if you are in the right program, at the college level, like who knows what could happen, I always find that, especially as someone who did walk on in college, it's like, you kind of get that excitement from those athletes where they're a little bit excited as soon as they walk in, everything's brand new. So, no, I love that. And I think, with that, like, so for talking about like athletes at your program, at any program out there, but, speaking in the context of Tennessee, like where would you talk, like in terms of like actually more so actually on the recruiting front, but like what questions should athletes, like as they begin this process as aspiring college rowers to compete at again, I'm just going to call it like top 25 type program, right? I know there's schools that are on, it's probably different tiers within that, but what questions should those athletes be asking themselves before they start to go down the path of pursuing us? And I'm talking like, literally like asking themselves, like, oh, like, is this something that I am prepared to put myself into, or am I at that level? Like, I'm just curious, like, it's a question that popped in my head and I find it a fascinating one, but like, what questions should they be asking themselves before they start to dive down the path of pursuing a top 25 type Division I program? And then more specifically, a program that is even beyond that, right? A top 10 program, for instance.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's kind of a good segue, because I was gonna, say before you kind of switch to that part of it, like I'm super biased because I think our team's awesome. Like they work really hard and they have a great sense of humor too. And that's something that we, obviously is definitely a kind of, when people come in and visit the school, they're always like, I've never once heard, I mean, it's just like, that's nonstop. Oh my God, the team's so awesome. They're a great group of women. And I think that when someone is at home, asking that question is like, do they want to row? They have to want to row. Obviously, that's what we do a lot. If you're coming into a school that is in that top grouping, but are you inspired by people around you to become a better version of yourself, a better rower of yourself, a better, maybe a better weightlifter, maybe take care of yourself better, maybe a better in school to get better grades. Like if you're inspired around a team atmosphere like that, and you know that you can build upon your athletic skills that you already have, then yeah, go for it. Go for a program like Tennessee, and be inspired to be there, and be inspired to work hard at the Division I level. If you know that, okay, like rowing, I just like to be at this level and I'm not as eager to learn more about the sport, I just like to do it kind of on the side, then I mean, some people like rowing more for fun, and that's the aspect. There's a lot of rowers out there that like to just row for fun, and that's not a bad thing, as long as they're still wanting to get better in the sport, and they're still becoming better people in the sport. I think that's fine, but I think it's like, if you want to go to one of those schools, you got to be excited to develop, especially at a school like Tennessee. We really do develop, and we hope that we really are inspiring athletes every day, whether it's coming from any of the leaders, whether it's a captain, a coach, an assistant coach, a coxswain. So if you're inspired to be a better athlete, and you're inspired to go to a school where you can get a great education, those top programs are awesome opportunities.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think like with that, it's like, what would you say, like, athletes at that, like, who again, like, they're just starting, right? They're just starting in this process, or maybe they're deeper into the process, right? They're deeper, and maybe they've had some conversations and things like that, but it's like, are there things they should be doing now to prepare for that? And maybe it is just like, I'm talking more like, hey, it could be something more tangible, like, hey, you got to be, focusing on training and fitness and this and that, or working on technique, or doing these camps, or whatever it may be. But it could be even as much as working on you as a person, in terms of like your communication skills, your ability to balance many things at a high level,
work with your teammates,
like, work with your teammates, right? And be a team player here at high school, so that, when you go off to college, it translates. So are there things like that you would kind of say, like, hey, like, start to think about this, or broad, right? Because every athlete's a little bit different, and every athlete has different things that they should work on. But broadly speaking, it's like, hey, like, these are things that you can start to incorporate now that can help better position you for success when you do set foot on campus, like those freshmen that did just arrive at Tennessee.
Yeah, you said it. You said like a lot of the key components, but you're not just, definitely setting yourself up from an athletic ability to be strong, and having that cross training that we talked about earlier. You want to be strong coming in, and kind of diving into some of that. Like, obviously, being a strong rower is good, but being strong as an athlete and just protecting your body and learning about your body, I think, is really important. We push that a lot at Tennessee, listening to your body, learning about your body. Things like that is just super, super important. But, that aspect of working on, maybe your leadership skills or your team working, skills is also important with the team. One of the reasons we were third in the country, everybody asked, oh, how are you able to make this, huge jump? Well, we did we did build a program. I built a program for 6-7 years over at another university, and some of them did come with us, but a lot of it was, and we finished, I think, 7th and 8th, 7th and 8th, 9th as a team in the country. So we had that ground there, but a lot of it was coming over and working together as a team to get us to that next big jump. And we all know there's a big difference between, 9th in the country and, on the podium in the country too. So I think that's something that working on those skills, working on those life skills are so important in high school. And, knowing that you go to a place where you can work on that in college and continue to develop as a student athlete. And that's why I say, like, it's more than just, where you think you can go to X school to get, a certain degree. It's more about where are you going to develop, and start that development in high school. Start that being a great athlete, a good person, a good, strong student. That's super important. Like I said, that was my background originally. And I think that just really helps, get the right people on the water and enjoy your experience a lot more. So if they can start that in high school, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think like I always say, like, there's like the athlete 1.0 is the athlete who kind of shows up, does everything right at practice, performs on the, in whatever said sport they're participating in. And then they walk out and they, it's on to whatever else is next on their agenda. But then the athlete 2.0 is that athlete who is taking everything into account, where it's like, okay, how am I as a leader? How am I with my communication? How am I with taking care of my body in terms of maybe it is strength training or body, just mobility recovery, things like that to help, right? Like that's kind of that next phase of an athlete. And I think you kind of highlighted it in the sense of like learning those skills as a junior or senior in high school is only going to make that transition to a competitive school like Tennessee like much smoother. And I think that's a big thing that I think a lot of coaches, like even at the high school level, can kind of get their athletes to really think about, like, hey, what are you doing when you do go home and after practice, and how are you taking care of your body? So no, I love that. I think that's really helpful for athletes out there. And I think one of the other things I would love to ask you is like, okay, like you, in terms of like your team now, the culture that you've built, the leadership style that you have started to really kick off, but also will probably continue to evolve over the next, phase of your experience at Tennessee. Like, what has changed for you as a coach in terms of like, hey, like maybe I thought, or just in terms of like building a team, building a culture, finding the right fit in terms of the athletes, but also the coaching staff, and, having that be something that is foundational that you can start to build off of. Are there things that over the course of your long career as a head coach that have changed over the course of, as you've continued to evolve as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, I think the ability to have more coaching staff has grown in the NCAAs. That was a coaching staff change. So I think it's awesome if you can, be at a place that has a lot of coaches, because rowing will never be, we just talked about it. It's never going to be, you're never going to go to the NCAAs and just race the 4, right? It's not going to be this small squad. It's always going to be a squad of a decent size. Now, some coaches like to say, oh, well, we're a small school, we're a big school, we have a small size. I mean, in general, rowing usually has a decent amount of, roster sizes with also a really big development range, right? So you have women at all different levels. So I think it's really important. One thing that is, not necessarily change, but I definitely think in order to be at the top, I think there's a lot going on within each of the levels. And that's why I have talked about my staff a lot, because they're amazing, and I do think that having, not every school is created the same. And I think that's something you got to look for and make sure that, not only the head coaches been developing their team over the last handful of years, but same with all of their assistants. And that's super important. That's one thing. Yeah, for sure. And another thing would be, we talked about it a little bit on this call, but like definitely the resources have changed. I was at schools and was able to build, I was part of the first ever at 3 other universities now, one as an assistant and 2 as a head coach, building them to the first ever in the top 15 in the country. And we were able to do it at a school with smaller resources, and now it's much harder. It's much harder to do that, and it's something where it can help make a huge impact on our student athletes' success. And there's a lot of opportunity. Last thing I would say too, as a coach, that's really changed is with the new kind of pay to play rules that are possibly coming down the road. They keep going back and forth on what is being passed and what's not, but there's a lot of opportunities for student athletes as rowers. And I say that I think you always have, some of the other sports looking for opportunities, whether it's, men's and women's basketball or football or things like that, but you don't really hear the rowers looking for opportunities. And I think that's something that's changed. I think the rowers should look for opportunities and go for them. And if they're at a place, at a school, they should ask that school, what opportunities are here for me? And how can I develop in that? I want to develop my own brand, or I want to do this or that. I think those are big questions for some of the other schools. And that has absolutely changed in the last even couple of years.
Yeah. And I imagine like schools, like, again, this is kind of comes back to the Power 5 type, right? SEC, like, like I'm sure those schools having incredibly high level football, basketball programs, right? Those ones that you see on, those programs that you see on TV. Like, I'm sure there are probably things that the school does to help encourage that or help athletes, right? Like, I just have to imagine, like, I'm sure it's a constant evolution because everything's kind of moving so fast. But I'm like, that's you saying that is very interesting, because you don't always associate those things with
Yeah.
rowing. Rowing, we're very, it's not. So how has that influenced things, with your program, and has it, and if it hasn't yet, do you foresee it being something
Yeah.
that
It
continues
was
to
something,
evolve?
honestly, I didn't even used to think about a lot until more recently, and I was so impressed when I came to Tennessee. There's the legacy of Pat Summitt, who is, one of the best basketball coaches in, the nation, and one of the best coaches, just in life, period. She was actually amazing and phenomenal. And she talks a lot, or, her memories talk a lot about just, investing in the Lady Vols, and the women at, Tennessee. And so they, have their own name, Lady Vols, and they have their own brand as well, which is pretty awesome. So, we wear our Tennessee logos in our basic Tennessee, but we also have our Summit Blue, which is in remembering of Pat Summitt, and what her philosophy there was. But she really believed in developing the women to, do great things and win national championships. And so, here at Tennessee, they really have that Lady Vol legacy that allows them to make contacts with, other, women Lady Vols, and just kind of, make a better brand for themselves. And that's not super common, in, women athletics in general, and it's becoming a lot more common in Division I sports, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd imagine that's like something that's like, especially like to have a foundation like that, and to have, a coaching history that, can help, or just, just the platform that I'm sure a school like Tennessee provides to help set athletes up
Yes.
for
Yeah.
that constant evolution in college athletics.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fascinating. So,
And at the end of the day, that really,
with
you and
that,
I both know that really matters, in that
yeah,
networking and how you're setting yourself up. It might not be like, oh, I got X GPA from X school. It might be more of, what have I done, and who do I know, and who have I made contacts with, and how have I developed myself. That really matters when you're going out there, and graduating, getting out in the real world.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I imagine that's something that, again, like it's just another experience that you can do even while you are taking classes and being a college
Yeah.
athlete. Like, it's not like, an internship in the off season or this or that. Like, it is something that can continue to grow your own individual brand that you now have
Yes.
for
And
life, that as you kind of
and
move
that's been
on.
so unique for me as a head coach too, is coming to Tennessee. They have like a program called the Vol Leaders, which is another example of those life skills that they develop to go not only through their collegiate experience, but then even above and beyond, past their collegiate experience. And it's all different athletes coming together, and they have a lot of programming. They go overseas in the summer. They do a lot of different programming throughout the year, and that's something completely separate from their sport. And that's it we're seeing a lot of. And that's something, it matches our philosophy in the rowing program really well to develop themselves overall. That's something we do here anyway. To see Tennessee athletics support that with the Vol Leadership program has been awesome to see that as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a unique opportunity for a lot of athletes out there who, again, like, they do want to get out of their comfort zone a little bit and be able to branch out and have that assistance from behind, right? Something kind of guiding, helping push them in that direction, or guide them in that
Yes.
direction. Um, yeah, that's awesome. So, couple, or I guess I got two more questions for you. I don't want to keep you all day. I
No
know you
worries.
already alluded to it. Sounds like you
Yes.
have lift this afternoon with you guys have some more sessions to, and things on your plate as you kick off this season, or kick off the school year. But I'm curious, two more questions. So I guess this one is, and you can take it in any direction that you
Oh no.
want, but we are we are here in September, right? And fast forward, I'm not a math person, but 5 or 6 months, right? Now we're here in February, March of 2025, and you just went through the fall semester. Athletes are back on campus. Maybe you've been, in your natural groove for a couple of weeks, but what is the conversation for you as a coaching staff? What is, and for you as the head coach, like, what does that conversation look like for your team entering, maybe a few weeks out from the spring season, entering into a spring season where you are, a team that finished at a very high place last year, and I'm assuming seeking more. Like, what does that messaging look like? Is it getting athletes to kind of, understand that, or simmer down a little bit with the excite? Like, what? Take it whatever direction you want. But I'm curious, as you guys fast forward 6 months, like what does that look like?
Kevin, my first response to my staff and myself is going to be like, holy crap, it's February 2025. Like, did you just say that? That's going to be my first response. I can't believe we're saying 2025. But no, I think like you said, maybe keeping the chatter down a little bit and just really focusing on each month. So really breaking down what we need to do in each month is going to be a really big focus for us, and not, obviously we always look to NCAAs. We always are gaining speed throughout the year. We did that really well last year. We can continue to do that throughout the year, all the way through NCAAs. And we have, obviously our specific goals, but, I think what we try to do is just kind of break it down more tangible. And in that month, it's a big, there's a big shift there into, obviously you're going from the fall type training into the spring training, which is a very different, in my opinion, just a big shift in the training and what our focus is on and kind of where we're going. So making sure they all understand what that is, and moving together to work together to achieve those goals. Obviously, yeah, we had amazing performance last year, and I feel like a lot of the returning women, always are going to feel that pressure, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but, not over focusing on that and focusing more on what we need to do each month to kind of get to where we want to be. So yeah, and creating those goals, as well internally with the team is important. So, I'm definitely not one to be like, this is my goal. It's what are our team goals and where do we want to be and what do we want to achieve come the end of May and early June.
Yeah, and is that something that you guys message, it's like whatever it is like that you use to motivate or pull back your team in terms of like just kind of getting them to kind of stay in the moment a little bit? Is that something that you guys frequently echo throughout the season? Is there like, do you guys have like these things that you always are consistently talking about, not to be like the specifics of it, but is that something that, again, like kind of echoing that bigger picture to your team, whatever that may be, is that something that you guys are constantly talking to your team about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, once we I think it takes us a little while to find out where we want to be and what we're doing. I think last year probably took us the longest to figure out kind of where we wanted to be and what we're doing, because that was our first year here. But then once we set to it, we do that, and we end it, and usually we even surpass it. So I think that's what we're kind of working through right now with our team, as you said, just kind of starting up school and getting into the first few weeks, and that's something we will build upon every month till we get there, is definitely kind of building upon what those goals are, for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to follow, to tune in and see how things are progressing.
Gotta get down to Tennessee.
My last, I know. I gotta make a trip down there. It's definitely high up on the list. Yeah, it's high up on the list. I gotta get down there. So, yeah, please. My last question for you. So, tell me a little bit about, like, you've been at Tennessee for a little bit over a year officially. In your role, like, what about the school other than rowing? That has nothing to do with the boathouse, the team, the resources, whatever it may be. Like, what about the school or even the community around the school? Like, what stands out to you as a coach? Like, what was a big sell for you as a coach that wasn't necessarily the rowing team itself? Like, what's something that sticks out to you about the university and the community?
Upon arrival here, it was amazing. Like, the school spirit was just amazing. I've spoken about this before when some people ask me, but it was actually downright shocking to be, out in our first year on the water and have people come, run down their lawns by the river screaming, "Go Vols, go Vols, go Vols." It's not just athletics, it's just the school spirit, because honestly, Tennessee, the school, they do everything really well. All the way down, like, our chancellor and our president is amazing, as well as our athletic director. So like you said, not just in athletics, but even above us, they're phenomenal. And it's just amazing to see. Tennessee really is pushing edge on so many different things that they do, which has been awesome to see in the academic field. I've been so impressed with some of their different fields that they do and just kind of what they're doing. There's so many things I've learned even along the river. They have different science places, and I'm like, wait, what? That's there? Oh, that's awesome! Like, and it's been super impressive to see. But the school spirit, the school camaraderie, just the community and the passion for it is awesome. You should see it. I mean, there are days where it's just orange around here. Rocky Top is filled with orange, and really it's the minute you drive into Tennessee. If you cross it, I was actually moving here and drove in, and the minute I got into the state of Tennessee, it is just Tennessee. And people are just so excited to be a part of it. And it's like, oh, you're at Tennessee, you're going to Tennessee, you work at Tennessee, oh, let me help you. There's definitely a little bit of Southern hospitality here too. The people are just very genuine, awesome, and super nice. And you see that around the community, which is pretty awesome. Our athletic director talks a lot about Knoxville being a college sports city, because it just really is. People are just so pumped up. We had baseball win the national championship last spring, and the mayor of Tennessee, came over, mayor of Knoxville, and it was just pretty awesome. They had a really big celebration, and the downtown Market Square was just filled with people just super passionate about the school itself and about Tennessee athletics. So it really is in both fields, which has been really, really impressive. And like I said, I'm kind of have my background. I'm a marine science geek, and so I really like some of the programming that they're doing here too. I've been super, super impressed with that, which has been really cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is amazing. I would, I have to get down there and see it for myself and tour it and maybe sometime soon. Obviously, with the seeing Tennessee on TV with the football program and all that, that's something that I'm always tuning in on. So no, this was awesome, Kim, and this was an incredibly exciting conversation. Like, I think so much related to your program at Tennessee, and then also just incredibly valuable information for anyone out there as they pursue college rowing and getting a little bit more inside access or understanding of what to expect. So no, this was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and making the time, as you guys are in a very busy time of the year. But no, I really appreciate it, and good luck as you guys get things started with the season. And we look forward to, I look forward to personally following the program, following the team. But I appreciate you coming on, and good luck as you guys get rolling.
Thanks so much for having us on. I appreciate our time as well. And I know you asked me, like, we're always super supportive of women or men that row in college. And I just encourage them to get out there and contact those coaches and, just ask them those questions. So ask them some of the questions that you asked. So yeah, but we're super excited about the year and really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kim. Good luck, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.